This week we have a cover that shows Pudding doing a Gum Gum pistol at Yonji and Niji to get revenge for the harm that they caused Sanji, and we see that Pudding is accompanied by her flying magic carpet called Arabian and Nitro the Jelly. And so it's kind of cool to see that, unlike in my personal life, the girl still has feelings for the guy. It's not like Pudding just forgot about Sanji. It was my fault too, though, because I made a mistake. I shouldn't be getting into this, I'm sorry. In my defense, I haven't dated anyone since the split. So I like the fact that Oda's not just disposing of that romantic thread that he established back in Whole Cake Island. So we start off with Sunisha on the outskirts of Wano, and I kind of get the impression that if Sunisha were to do the exact same thing that she ended up doing in Zou, which is to swing her trunk to demolish these ships, I think that would be kind of repetitive, and I think Oda is more creative than that. So I am sticking to the theory of Sunisha sucking up some water and using its trunk to put out the fire in Onigashima. Now the thing about this Odin journal thing is that a lot of people are saying that this pretty much confirms that Yamato will join the crew, because it actually gives Yamato a goal. So if the journal is missing information, then that means that the journal has to be completed, much like Nami has to complete a full map of the world, and then Robin has to read the Rio Poneglyph. So it gives Yamato a goal that is similar to Nami and Robin, where they have to fill in the blanks. So Yamato will probably take this as a sign and say, okay, well, if I really want to become Odin, then I have to complete his journal. And so that would be Yamato's goal as a Straw Hat. And so I think what's missing from the journal is Joy Boy's story. That's why it's called Laughtale, right? Because that's where Joy Boy left his story, and it's a story full of laughs. And so Joy Boy's story, I think, should also contain Joy Boy's hope for the world. Because Joy Boy had a project that he wanted to bring to fruition, but he never got to do that. That's why he left an apology letter in the form of a poneglyph back in Fishman Island. And like I said last time, the nature of the One Piece has to be about bringing people together. And so I think a lot of the times what stops us from reaching out to people is fear. And so that's the fear that Momonosuke brings up. He says, I'm not sure, like if I open up the borders, I'm worried that the people of Wano will be hurt. Because the borders were closed in the first place to protect Wano from a threat. So the fear of taking that risk makes sense. But ultimately, I think the invitation of Joy Boy is to be free. And the way to be truly free is to face your fears. So to answer Momonosuke's question, I don't think that being scared makes you a coward. But ultimately, I think we all have to make decisions about how we want to live our lives. Are we going to live them in fear, or are we going to be free? And that section of the chapter definitely looks like it kind of cuts off as Yamato is about to respond to Momonosuke. So I'm sure we'll get an answer from Yamato pretty soon. And so I think that Yamato saying that Momonosuke is the one who's meant to lead the world to its dawn, it not only has to do with opening the borders of Wano and making sure that the borders stay open, but also I think using Sunisha's help to reshape the world by like maybe moving islands around and maybe creating additional spaces where islands can be closer together. And it's kind of strange too, because the page that's missing from the journal is the page that has the information about what's in Laughtale. And so I remember Rayleigh at one point, I think he told Robin that even though, Roger and his crew got to Laughtale, that maybe if Luffy's crew gets to Laughtale, they might actually come up with a different interpretation of what they see there. So it's almost as if like even Laughtale itself, right? Or even finding out what the One Piece is, it's almost as if that actually also takes freedom into consideration. So it kind of feels like ultimately, once they get to Laughtale, the Straw Hats will be faced with a choice about what to do. And so I feel like that's why the page was left blank. That's why there's that space there that was left, because it's like, okay, you get to choose. You choose. You go to Laughtale, you find out what's there, and then, based off of your own conclusion, your own interpretation, then you decide what to do, and you write that down based on what you think is best. And that'll be the record that Yamato decides to write. So we get the Alabasta box for Raizo winning over Fukurokuju, and then Jinbei shows up. We head to the treasury on the second floor to see Komurasaki and Orochi. And as we suspected, the song that Komurasaki plays on the shamisen is in fact Moon Princess, which is the song that she used to play as a little girl. And again, this is Hiyori's look each time she opens up or closes up an act. And so I think it's pretty accurate to say that beneath the mask, whenever she plays the song, she's actually crying or looking sad, because it reminds her of her dad. And the strategy of trying to take down Orochi by limiting his devil fruit power and restricting his ability, and then trying to squash him with some rubble, is pretty smart, because at this point Hiyori knows that, if she cuts one of those heads, they're just going to grow back. So just like in Hercules, instead of going around slicing heads, you squash the snake altogether. Now at one point, Raizo does say that the preparations are ready, and I'm like, preparations for what? I'm not really sure what he meant there. I'm connecting it, though, to the scene with Komurasaki, because, she's playing the shamisen, and then Orochi is like, stop playing that. Don't do that anymore. What are you doing? So it's almost as if she's giving out a signal, Like ding, 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 ding. Like to me, it almost seems like that's the thing that causes the ceiling to fall on Orochi. So maybe there was somebody up there that kind of helped. We haven't seen Denjiro or Kawamatsu in a while. I like how using Sea Stone came into play at some point during this raid, because Wano is the birthplace of Sea Stone. Also, just thematically, I think it's fitting how Orochi gets a lot of panel time in this chapter, and then the chapter ends with a Gear 4th Snake Man move called Hydra. We get Izo and the CP0 member defeating each other simultaneously, so it's Shigan finger pistol versus a normal pistol, and they seem to be having the same effect in that scene. I think it's interesting that despite Maha being defeated, we don't really get to see his face afterwards. It reminds me of Who's Who, where like Jinbei defeated him and we still haven't seen his face. So the guy with the Go board calls in and pretty much confirms that the devil fruit that the Gorosei were talking about a couple of chapters ago is in fact the Gomu Gomu no Mi, because the new orders are to just eliminate Luffy. So the Gorosei are pretty scared of Luffy's awakening, which, given what Luffy says by the end of the chapter, I'm pretty sure the awakening is going to be triggered very soon in his fight against Kaido. And I think that after Wano, just the way that these CP0 agents are talking about this, it just makes it obvious that after Wano, like everything's going to be happening super fast. That's why I'm super curious about what the arcs after Wano are going to look like. Because right now I'm thinking that they're going to be super fast paced, you know, just one thing right after the other. Just boom, 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 boom. It's like a domino effect. So the guy says these are orders that are meant to prevent a worst case scenario. You understand? Though it's a scenario we've only heard about through rumors and hearsay. And so I'm guessing that they're talking about the return of Sun God Nika. Because if you remember, like in Jinbei versus Who's Who says that Nika was also sort of a rumor, like a legend, that people knew about him, but they kind of talked about him as if he didn't really exist. So I think that's what they're talking about. They're worried that Luffy's awakening will cause the return of Sun God Nika. I knew Drake was going to get back up. It didn't make any sense for him to be KO'd this early, especially because he hasn't done much. So if I had to put money on this, I'd say that Drake was the only member of the Topiropo that was an awakened prehistoric Zoan. And so now it's pretty obvious that the CP0 member will be defeated by Drake, because Kobe did a really good job at hyping Luffy up for him. And so since he pledged his allegiance to Luffy, he said, hey, like, Straw Hat, let me fight alongside you. He heard that CP0 is after Luffy now, and he'll have to make good on his promise. And so it'll be up to him to defeat this CP0 member. We get two contrasting shots, one with Usopp wanting to get out of the skull, and then the other one with the Minx wanting to get into the skull. And I'm really curious what Oda's plan is here with Usopp, because I honestly have no idea what he plans to do with this. It's just so strange. Like, it could go so many ways, but it's just like, I want to know what the point of this whole thing is. It's kind of cool, too, that Frankie is the one who catches Zoro with strong right. Because that was foreshadowed. He ran into Zoro while he was fighting King, and then at the end, he was definitely looking for Zoro. So I like that. That was probably the best option for the Zoro rescue. Then we find out that Zeus is no longer infused with Nami's Climateact. He's calling out for Big Mom, which I guess is confirmation that she's going to be back at some point. And then we see that Marco has gone back to his hobby of being a veterinarian and healing animals, as we saw, I think it was during the Reverie. And Marco has a dialogue where he says that this is the most dangerous island in the world right now. So I'm kind of curious as to why that is. Like, why is it that this is the most dangerous for him, right? For him to say that, that says something. And so I'm like, is it because the island is falling apart, because it's collapsing, or is it because Kaido is there, or because Luffy is there, or is it because, you know, to quote Doflamingo, this fight right now, or, you know, this place is neutral ground, and so whoever wins will decide the fate of things to come. I like the fact that it still appears like Kid has some stamina left, you know, very minimal, but at least, you know, he's kind of thinking about, well, should we, shouldn't we? It'd be kind of cool if he did something else, honestly. But then Law says no, because Luffy's the main character, so just leave Kaido to him. Law's dialogue in the official translation is interesting because last week or last chapter we were talking about how it was a battle of will with Big Mom, right? Big Mom wanting to impose her will onto Kid, onto Law, and then the two of them eventually emerging victorious in that battle of will. But what's interesting here is that Law says that if Kaido's the one to come down, then he doesn't have enough willpower left to resist. And so we were talking about Conqueror's Haki last chapter, which is why I wanted to bring this up. Plus, also, if you watched last night's anime episode, they foreshadowed Jinbei having Conqueror's Haki again when he arrives at Who's Who's lair, right? There's that intimidation factor that Jinbei has. It's not the first time that the anime has done this when it comes to Jinbei and kind of, you know, nudging or hinting that, there's something there that is maybe connected to Conqueror's Haki. We cut to the rooftop for a shot of Luffy versus Kaido that is similar to the one that we get in the opening. Conqueror's Haki, and we see that Kaido is still drunk because he lets out a huge burp, and then he pretty much does the same thing that Big Mom did versus Law and Kid, which is like unleash this wave of Conqueror's Haki that actually pushes Luffy away. We get a brief flashback to Big Mom's rock pirate days, and I believe that Kaido and Big Mom, they are 9 years apart. So if Kaido is 15 in this scene, then that means that Big Mom has to be 24. And so her dialogue in this scene reminds me of what Whitebeard told Odin, where if you get too many people on the same crew that have big egos, the crew kind of like just goes nowhere. But then also just listening to Big Mom talking about rocks the way she does reminds me of what Zoro says in Water 7, where if the crew doesn't respect the captain, then the crew is destined to fall apart, which is essentially what happens with rocks, right? And then we also see that Charlotte Linlin is already very motherly, just the way that she talks to Kaido. If somebody picks on you, just tell me, because I'm mom. So it kind of makes sense why she would be the one to give Kaido his devil fruit after Rocks gets defeated. And then she says one thing that connects to what she was saying in the previous chapter about how she was kind of like frustrated about like not knowing what the One Piece was, because she says, I'll be the one to conquer or to rule the seas. When in fact, the true motive behind becoming king of the pirates is that you shouldn't want to rule or conquer anything. You should just want to be free. That's what Luffy says. I'm sure that's how Roger felt. So you can see that even from back then, Big Mom didn't get it. And again, I'm noticing a pattern here with drunk Kaido where he blames himself for stuff. Because I remember at one point, Big Mom got thrown out of the rooftop, and sober Kaido was like, oh, you're pathetic, Lin Lin. How can you let that happen? But now that he's drunk, he's like, how could I let this happen to her? So again, there's some deep-seated guilt inside of Kaido. I'm not really sure what happened, like what he failed to do, but it's just so obvious that he's carrying that guilt with him. Specifically about not being able to protect something or someone. So Luffy goes Gear 4th, Snake Man. This is the second time that Luffy uses Snake Man in this fight. The first time was when he came back to the rooftop with Yamato, and Yamato also used a snake-themed attack on Kaido as well. It was kind of like a combo thing. Now I think the reason for why Luffy decides to use Snake Man here is because of the speed boost, because the thing about Kaido being in drunk mode is that he's a lot more flexible, so he can dodge hits pretty easily. So just like with Katakuri, Snake Man adds that extra speed to Luffy's punches, and it also makes the punches a lot more difficult to predict, because the punches change directions while they're in the air. Hence why we have Kaido's comment of like, where are these punches even coming from, right? So similar to Katakuri's reaction. Luffy says, don't talk to me about your dreams, because your dreams actually cause people some harm, made them starve. And so this kind of goes back to what I was saying last time about how the nature of the One Piece has to be about bringing people together in a healthy way, not causing them harm, not causing them to starve. And I think it was Library of O'Hara who said that he thinks that Luffy's secret dream, the secret dream of Luffy is to have like one big party with the entire world. I mean, I think that makes perfect sense, honestly. Because it sounds like a childish dream. It sounds like a dream that would cause people to laugh at him, but he believes in it. So, and again, I think really what that means is like world peace. Having a world that's peaceful. The world would be a much better place if we could just party together, with food and drinks without having people starve. And so with that in mind, I definitely think that the idea of the empty throne is an idea that the world government stole from Nika and from the Lunarians, because the idea of the empty throne is that it's empty because no one person can rule the world. So it symbolizes peace. And how people are free, in theory. So I think that's an idea that Nika came up with back when he was around, because he wouldn't want to rule anything either. But then after the Void Century, the world government came into power and stole that idea from the Lunarians. And so now they lie to people and tell them that they're free, when in fact we know that there's like one person who sits on the throne who actually does rule behind closed doors. But I do think the concept of the throne being empty is a concept that Nika or Joy Boy came up with. And so as Luffy is punching Kaido with Hydra, he says that this is his final Gear 4th, and that he's not stopping until he runs out of energy, which means that the only things that can come after this, since he's saying that this is his final Gear 4th, the only two things that can come after this is either Gear 5th or Awakening. So yeah, we're getting very close to Luffy showing something new. And that's pretty much the chapter, guys. I'm going to be very, very honest. This was a very, very difficult chapter to review for different factors, different reasons. Number one is the things that are going on with me in my life. The other reason is because of what's going on in the world right now. And then the last thing is that the chapter, like, it's like a big collage, right? It's like a scrapbook. It's just a bunch of different snippets of several characters throughout Onigashima pasted together, and then ending it with a final Gomu Gomu no Mi moment. So the focus is all over the place when it comes to this chapter because we get a ton of different little updates from different characters. And it's fine if you're binging the series. Like if you're binging the manga, you're picking up a volume and you're just, binging through it. This is a solid chapter. But it does get a little bit difficult if you're doing it, once a week. But mainly though, underneath it all is that I'm not in the right space right now. I'll be fine. I'll be fine. I just need time, I think. Yeah, I need time. And so I apologize. I apologize for the length of this review. I tried every second of the thing that I recorded on this video. It took everything in me, so it sucks in the moment, and I think it's okay to feel that way. And if this story has taught me anything, is that it's important that we don't lose hope and that we smile in difficult situations. So with that in mind, thank you for all of your support. Thank you for watching. I promise I'll make it up to you. Make it up to you in the next videos. Take care, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.